the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Dare I say, upon review, maybe the record was better than the team kind of felt. But maybe that's because of expectations, just because I go into the year thinking, boom, Spencer Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace. This is the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in college football, and had all these expectations. And I mean, the offense was okay. Oklahoma State was really like led by its defense. Like the reason why Oklahoma State won and was successful had nothing to do with that headlining trio. Hubbard's gone. Wallace is gone. Also, Dylan Stoner's gone. Spencer Sanders was loose with the ball. He saw his touchdown to interception ratio flip dramatically from that freshman season. I think at the wide receiver position, I take note of, remember Wallace played a half, but then opted out of the bowl game at halftime. It was pre-planned. But Brennan Presley had a really good game in that, a really good performance in that bowl game. So I'll be curious to see if he ends up being the new wide receiver one there. They bring back a lot of players on defense. Can the defense be strong again? And is it fair to have the expectation that Oklahoma State's offense might just be okay? And what does that say about Spencer Sanders and/or Mike Gundy as we go into this spring looking for answers?
I was going to say the defense better still be pretty good, because
I don't see any answers to say things are going to be awesome on offense.
Yeah, because I think a lot of that's going to depend on if Spencer Sanders improves at all, because it's strange, because if you look at his stats from a freshman to sophomore, now obviously they played 2 fewer games last season, but as a freshman, he completed 155 passes on 247 attempts. As a sophomore, he completed 155 passes on 247 attempts. You don't see that a lot where a guy has the same attempts and completions from year to year, but his yards per attempt went down by 0.3 yards per attempt. His adjusted yards stayed about the same. So it's like he pretty much had the same season as a sophomore that he had as a freshman. It's just when you have that season as a freshman, you're like, hey, this is a kid, showed a lot as a freshman. He's got potential to grow. But then when you do it as a sophomore, it's like, wheels are still kind of spinning in the mud. You don't know if he's going to improve or if he's just a finished product who you've tapped into and you've gotten everything you got. And then as you mentioned, with the players that they're losing on offense, it's like, okay, he's losing a lot of the talent around him, and now you really need him to take that step forward. So if he does, I think Oklahoma State is a team that could be, a pleasant surprise in the Big 12 this year. If he doesn't, I think it could be kind of a downer kind of season for the Cowboys, which is another one of the reasons why, again, I'm taking Oklahoma over the field.
So, like, their run game sucked last year.
Yes.
I mean, they were 111th in rushing success rate, right, and 80th in rushing efficiency. And yet I looked at it, and I was like, man, their passing game was fine on an efficiency basis. And I was thinking about it, and I really think this is where, like, going to the numbers more helps you, and having watched the games can really help, because I really think defenses were just ganging up against the run against these guys last year and daring them to beat them through the air, trying to keep Spencer Sanders in the pocket, right? I mean, and looking at this, teams basically zoned them and didn't think Spencer Sanders could complete balls against zone. They faced zone more than 75% of the time, which is, pretty well above the national average. I think the teams were just trying to take away the run game, and okay, if Sanders beats us with his arm, fine. And some of his numbers were okay, but oftentimes he was not able to beat them, with his arm, particularly when they got into obvious passing situations. That wasn't happening. So yeah, I do share y'all's concerns about the offense. I will say the one thing that makes me a little bit more bullish on it is, yeah, they lose Jackson, right? Who, is an awesome offensive tackle, but like the rest of the offensive line last year was a total mess with injuries. I mean, they had guys go down nonstop. I remember looking at the preseason, like, who do they have left? Like are they going to be playing walk-ons here? And, Tulsa ate them up early in the year, like basically because the offensive line couldn't block. And I think that you could avoid a big drop-off in offense if the offensive line is just somewhat better and a little bit more consistent. Because, good offensive line, or at least an okay one, with a guy who can move around like Spencer Sanders, they could make some happen. And I don't want to just discount Gundy's ability to put up points. But yeah, they do lose an awful lot. I think their secondary will be much better too on the other side of the ball. I'm not quite as down on this team as it sounds like Tom is.
I'm not down on them either. I But again, I'm kind of like Tom. Like, well, I'm not picking them to win the Big 12, but hello, that's not, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the second or third best. Like, I think that's a pretty good ceiling for them to reach, like to challenge Oklahoma for the Big 12. Their defense, 7 guys returning. The offensive line, which you mentioned, 6 of them have, because of some of those injuries, they get to cycle in. They actually get some playing experience. They got 6 starters on the offensive line, or 6 players with starting experience coming back. So that's a good thing. And this team was a completely different look because the run game was shut down so massively. And it was also, you had 26 sacks given up, and Spencer Sanders missed a couple games because he was hurt. Like, it was a lot to overcome. In fact, when we're doing this, I was kind of surprised. I forgot that they finished this high in the Big 12, because I feel like we wrote them off last year. Like, I was like, oh, I pictured them around 500. You're like, oh, wait a second. They had a nice bowl performance. Like, they actually won that game. Like, this team didn't go anywhere. It just wasn't the team we thought it was going to be. So I think their defense will be back. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be pretty solid. And I agree with all of you guys. I think it's going to determine, like, Spencer Sanders, can he take that next step? Like, does he have another gear to get to? And maybe with a run game, maybe you get that out of him.
Oh, Danny, 2 things. Number one, I also think just sometimes we see young quarterbacks improve on their ability to throw to the middle of the field as they get older. And for Spencer Sanders, that was something that he just did not do really at all, right? So 51% of his passes went to outside receivers. That's basically the tops in the country. So, like, he was constantly putting the ball outside. If he does keep with that
Thailand.
Yeah, right? And, like, backs, nope. Tight ends, nope. Slots, not really. Just chucking it outside. I will say Tay Martin could be a dude who could be a breakout guy for them at receiver. And I know they got a lot to replace at receiver, but I think Tay Martin has an ability to step up and do some stuff for them. He actually kind of flashed a little bit last year as a reserve.